What seems harmless but is incredibly dangerous? Nurse. I had a teenage girl come from home economics class. She was sewing and had a pin between her lips. I mean, who hasn't done that? She sucked it in and it got lodged in her throat. While waiting for a scope she felt it dislodge and went deep into her main bronchial. She required major surgery. Had a young boy running with a toothbrush in his mouth. Got jammed way deep, almost hit a major artery. Riptide and 4 feet waves, my friend drowned at the beach from a sneaker set. Terrible. Having a loose animal in the car. A safety instructor once told me doctors had to dig dog bones out of a person after it got between them and an airbag. Pool covers. It's like being wrapped in a bed sheet underwater. You cannot get free and you cannot scream for help. Once you're in, the only way to get out is to be incredibly lucky and get free, or have faith that someone saw or heard you fall in and hope that they get you in time. It's a lengthy, terrifying death that's completely avoidable. Oil painting in a closed studio. Kids picking flowers in the park. I am a conservation technician for a county park system. At least once a year I have to stop parents with kids picking flowers off the trail because I see kids with either poison hemlock, one of the deadliest plants if ingesting even a tiny amount, or wild parsnip, which can cause some serious permanent scarring, burns, and boils if the sap gets onto your skin and is exposed to sunlight. Don't let your kids pick or eat anything you aren't 100% sure of. Having a small snack before a medical procedure that requires anesthesia. Intubation can cause you to throw up your food and you can choke. Mandolin slicer. Use the handguard. Or lose a thumb. Not checking/changing the tires on your car. Someone back me up on this. You can't just drive around with the same tires on forever. Eventually you'll end up doing donuts in the middle of a wet interstate because your back tires lost traction. Oceanside cliff blowholes. People think they're so much fun to stand around and play with. You fall into one of those things, you aren't getting out. The waves will just bludgeon you against the rocks until you die, or you're lucky enough to drown first. Confined spaces, above ground or worse, below the surface. If you do urban exploration, caving, or anything like that, get a 4-gas detector, clip it to your chest or belt, and set the alarm to max. If it makes a sound, get the fuck out or you are going to die. Walking off the boardwalks at Yellowstone. They have several signs pressing that even though the ground may look normal in those areas, it could be really thin. I've seen people do it anyway. Look safe, safe. There's that Peppa Pig episode about spiders, teaching UK kids that they are nice and friendly, and that episode is banned in Australia. So there you go. Here's my answer: Peppa Pig episodes. Eating raw or undercooked kidney beans can make you very sick or even kill you. It only takes like 3 undercooked kidney beans to ruin your day. Weirdly specific, but leaking hydraulic fluid from a small crack in a pressurized manifold. It doesn't shoot out like a gas would, instead looks like droplets, but if you put your thumb over it, it shoots toxic hydraulic fluid into your bloodstream. Cat scratch fever. Yeah, the song is pretty cool, but that's about it. A stray cat scratched my dad one time and fucked his shit up. Walking along the train tracks. It's crazy how fast millions of pounds of freight can sneak up on you. As a maintenance man who found a dead guy today, huffing air duster. Don't do it, kids. Edit, I went to bed and this blew up a little. It's a little messed up cause dude was only 1 year younger than me and honestly a cool dude, definitely was not expecting that to happen to him, but, well, it happened because of decisions he made. For those concerned about my mental health, I appreciate the concern, so thank you. I'm alright. This is always a thing that can happen in my work, where you have 60 some odd people of various ages and temperaments all living in a place, and you never know if one day 83-year-old Jenkins is gonna croak and you're gonna open it up and he's been there untouched for 2 weeks, or if you're gonna open a place for a concerned fiancé and find a dude clutching a can of duster. I just let concerned parties deal with their stuff and go about my own work. That's the best I can do. For those saying it's obviously dangerous, I may agree with you, but a lot of people don't realize how dangerous it is. My friends used to huff duster when we were out of pot when we were teenagers, and it always scared the shit out of me, but they would always say stuff like it's not like it's heroin or whatever, to minimize concern. They were lucky they weren't this guy. He also had no idea he was gonna take that huff and that would be it for him until his fiancée found him 18 hours later. Texting co-workers after you've been drinking. Garage door springs. People don't realize just how much tension those things are actually under. Never repair a garage door yourself unless you know exactly what you're doing. The stored energy in them is enough to break bones and sever limbs. Garage door springs. I DIY a lot of things, but after reading about door springs I'll let the professionals handle it. Over-the-counter medicines. Just because you can get something without a prescription does not mean it's safe in all cases or in high doses. Lint. Too much lint in a dryer can cause a fire. Gotta clean that stuff out on the regular. Jumping on a trampoline. Giving grapes to dogs. They're quite toxic. Pushing someone's face into a cake as a joke. Some cakes have little wooden spikes inside to support the cake. Saw a post where a girl's face was gored by one of these. Cleaning ammonia with bleach. This thread. It's making me not want to leave the house ever again. Putting your feet up on the dash while riding as a passenger in a moving car. You do not want to see post-accident photos of what happens when someone is in that posture in a surprise head-on collision. Silence in a house with toddlers. Cat bites. Cat fangs puncture deep and trap bacteria deep within your tissue, leading to horrible infections. You might think one isn't serious because it's not bleeding much, but that just means the wound isn't flushing properly. If you get seriously bitten by a cat, it's very important to go to urgent care so they can properly disinfect the wound. The cinnamon challenge that was all the rage a few years back. When aspirated, it can cause severe burns on mask passages and airways. Edit, nasal, not mask, but it kind of worked anyway. Well, cows seem pretty harmless, but these guys aren't to be underestimated. I got attacked by a mother one for getting a bit too close to the calf. I was lucky the horns were specifically made to be round, otherwise I would have lived with one kidney from then on, since it rammed into my kidney but not hard enough to damage thankfully, still hurt like hell after though. Climbing a ladder. It doesn't even have to be a big ladder. Even one of those two-step ladders are incredibly dangerous. One ill-placed step can change your entire life. Hanging around idiots. Most of the time they only do dumb shit that affects themselves, but when they do something that affects you it can change your whole life. So just remember, if you're in with a group of imbeciles you're rolling the dice with your life every second. It's like standing in low-grade radiation, it's unnoticeable right up until it's incurable. Throwing your friend in the pool. Petting someone's dog without asking, grimacing face. Pushing people over as a prank. Small cuts you get when doing marine stuff. If you are diving/snorkeling at a coral reef and lightly scrape yourself on some coral, for the love of God disinfect the living shit out of that, no matter how mild it looks. The bacteria on coral will literally eat your leg off. Having small cuts on your hand while handling stuff like diatomaceous earth or sea sponges can cause tiny glass spines to enter your bloodstream and poke tiny holes in all those blood highways running through you. While this is a bit of a he said she said story, my professor apparently had a student hospitalized and died due to massive internal bleeding issues from handling this shit day after day. Ladders. Those things will fuck you up if you don't use them properly. Riding a horse. Sports gambling apps. Texting while driving. You might think this is obvious, but I see many people texting and driving every day. Not cool and definitely not safe. Walking up and down house stairs. Spillways. As an engineer, I have seen and understand that they can kill you. I know that when the toe or last half of a spillway is filled and there is a pool at the bottom, a whirlpool can be created. Not the whirlpool you're thinking of at the public pool that spins you around. It's similar but turned on its side. The whirlpool it created will prevent you from swimming away from the spillway or even create waves pushing you down. The water goes down the spillway and then rushes back up where the incoming water pushes it back down again. The force can be so great that you cannot get out. Kids see these spillways as water slides with pools on the bottom. If they're large spillways, canoers see them as a small waterfall. These hidden whirlpool can kill you. People go down the spillways and get trapped and will drown. They can become extremely dangerous. Water in general, but fast-moving water specifically. 2 or 3 inches of water is all that's needed to sweep you off of your feet if it's moving fast. 12 inches of water will lift and sweep away a car. Water is heavy and will fuck you up if you don't respect it. An unloaded gun, or even worse, an unloaded gun. There is a reason as to why gun instructors always tell you to treat every firearm as if it was loaded. Those black foodstuffs with charcoal in them. Charcoal interacts with a bunch of medications, gets in the way of nutrient absorption, and can really upset your digestive tract. Letting water from a fresh water source up your nose. Most of the time it will be fine, but every once in a while you'll get a brain-eating amoeba that has a 99.9% fatality rate. This is in the US as well. Silicon chips. Very safe in the finished product form, but dear God, the chemicals involved are dangerous. One component in production is pure hydrogen and it is the safest one. Another is trichlorosilane. Its auto-ignite temp is 40 Fahrenheit. It's combustible on contact with moisture, which includes humidity. When it mixes with water and doesn't manage to explode, its temperature skyrockets and the byproduct is hydrochloric acid. I learned this while working in a polysilicon factory when they dumped it on my crew from an empty vessel. Inhaling helium. For kids, someone online with a sympathetic ear for their problems. Responsible adults will try to put you in touch with real-life help, not encourage a pattern of reliance and inappropriate intimacy. Bonus danger points on anyone who throws down "you're really mature for your age." Predators online work just like real-life hunting predators. Their first goal is to separate you from your herd. Plutonium. If no one told you what it was, you'd think it was just a random piece of metal. Changing lanes without leaving a proper gap or checking your blind spot and signaling your intention. On the surface it seems fine because, hey, you're going faster than the person you're passing, right? Nope, all it takes is something like a deer to completely fuck your world sideways. When passing anyone, always wait to get into the lane they were in until you see their headlights fully in your rearview mirror and have cleared your blind spot. It's even more dangerous to do this to a semi. Your car will be eaten if it hits you. Always, always, always visually check your blind spot. Always. Blind spot sensors are not an adequate substitute for a visual check. You're asking for trouble if you don't make sure someone hasn't popped in there. Use your dang turn signal. Other drivers are not mind readers. Signal your intent and follow through with it. Following too closely in your car. Not just tailgating, but even following 50+ feet behind in fast traffic. Next time you're in your car, wait for the car in front of you to pass a clear marker like an exit sign or a bridge, then count the seconds until you reach this marker. This is the amount of time you have to react, and potentially save your own life, in an emergency. I always shoot for 3 seconds, which is about 20 car lengths in 70 miles per hour traffic. For people who follow a 3 car lengths rule, you have about 0.4 seconds to react in the same situation, and I'm not that quick under pressure. A child. Alone they may not seem like much, but in groups they can cause mass havoc. Just closing your eyes for a few more minutes after cutting your alarm off. I have to either get up or hit the snooze button, or I'm going to be out for hours, lol. This entire thread is making me very anxious. All the comments here have made me not want to touch myself, others or leave the house. Driving when sleepy. My floor when I have socks. Caterpillars. Some of those fuzzy bastards can cause some serious damage. Too much quick dopamine instant pleasure. When you rely on it, it's not fun. Because eventually those highs wear off and you're left with an even worse depression or state of mind. Taking more Tylenol than suggested. Taking pictures of bears, apparently it looks harmless to people in Yellowstone. Bears are faster than many expect, especially uphill, so if you are ever near a bear and want a picture, stay in your car to do it. The gun you think is unloaded. Escalators. Cute little palm-sized octopi with cute little blue rings on it. Edit. Many people are saying octopi is incorrect. It's registered in the Cambridge Dictionary as a plural form, but then again, so is the word ain't. Unprotected sex. Social media. I read a study recently on a rare disorder called Eagle syndrome. A little bone at the base of your skull gets too long. There were about 30 cases in the US last year where someone was talking on their phone, dancing, just looking up and pointing at something, and that little bone was long enough to sever their internal carotid artery. Weird to think someone's body just tried to end it all for looking up. Dull knives. Dull knives are far more likely to cause an incident compared to a sharp one. Reddit. I was a normal, well-adjusted person until I tried it. Now look at me. Starting a car in a closed garage. Edit. Closed, not close. Being conflict avoidant. People think they are trying to keep the peace by not causing friction, but when you don't have healthy conflict, boundaries get run over, you get burnt out, you feel unheard or taken advantage of, and on a higher level, terrible people get into and keep positions of power and oppression when people opt to stay silent rather than challenge the status quo for the sake of pseudo-unity. Feeding wildlife. Even if it seems safe for yourself to do so, it's probably very dangerous for the animal you feed. It's very likely that feeding a wild animal may lead to its death. Hippos look like goofy, cute, friendly animals, but they are among the most dangerous animals that you could ever encounter. They are the one animal that even Steve Irwin was afraid of and wouldn't go near. Jumping across the Bolton Strid. A waterway that appears as a stream, but is actually a sort of sideways river, with an extremely strong current. Shorting GME. Stonefish, camouflage fish, very painful venom cone snail, orange-white cone-shaped shell that often looks attractive and enticing, until you pick it up. Edit. Wow, this blew up in only a couple of hours. THX for all the likes. I found your stories so interesting. You can learn about other deadly creatures like these on Nature's Deadliest, National Geographic. Another edit. Wow, THX for the award. Answering a seemingly innocent "just wanted to see how you are doing" text from someone who is bad for your mental health. Turbulence. If proper precautions are being taken, it's not dangerous, but under certain circumstances, it can be. 1. Keep your seatbelt on at all times when you're sitting, even if the light isn't on. The flight crew doesn't just recommend this to ruin your day. CAT, clear air turbulence, can happen at any time, without warning, and people have been seriously injured by being thrown from their seats and hitting the overhead bins, seats, other passengers, etc. 2. Lap infants, big no-no. I'm not sure why the FAA even allows this. Infants are safest in a car seat for air travel. The minute the plane hits a bump, moms, or whoever is holding the baby, arms are going to loosen and a child whose skull hasn't fully fused together is going to go airborne. In the case of baby wearing, any impact the wearer incurs is also going to affect the child, and given how little room there is between rows of airplane seats, there's a much greater chance of injury to the baby. It probably seems ridiculous to most folks to have to purchase a separate seat for a small child, and while I wholeheartedly agree that the airline industry is rife with money-grubbing bloodsuckers, This is one expense you can't afford to skimp on. Source: I personally know several airline pilots and crew members who have seen this shit firsthand. Canada Goose. Cobra chickens don't take shit from anyone. Paracetamol and/or ibuprofen. It's a really common, easy to get hold of and cheap painkiller but can be deadly as feck. I work in the healthcare business and I've seen people who have tried to kill themselves with paracetamol. They generally take 30 to 5,500 milligrams tablets. This is usually a potentially fatal dose, dependent on body weight, as it can lead to liver failure. Yet I have seen people with a simple toothache, and I know it can be the worst pain ever as I've had it myself, who have taken 3 to 6 times that dosage as they can't cope with the pain but don't think they have done anything wrong since it's kept the pain at bay, not whilst realizing they are blitzkrieging their liver. Most recently was a 23-year-old who'd had toothache in his wisdom tooth for a couple of weeks and had developed an abscess. He was taking 2x 500 mg paracetamol and 2x 200 mg ibuprofen every 15 minutes as the pain was so bad that it was the only way he could dull the pain. When told they have to go to ED right away, the response is usually, "Why? It's only paracetamol and ibuprofen. They wouldn't sell them if they were bad for you." Microtransactions in video games. Gateway gambling with predatory methods. Walking around with a pen in your mouth. Amateur mental health advice. Everyone is an armchair psychologist these days and that creates problems. Diagnosing and treating mental illness is actually incredibly complex. There's a reason we make people study for so many years before we call them experts. If a friend comes to you complaining about a serious mental health condition like depression, suicide, anxiety, etc., your first advice should always be see an expert. It's way easier than you think to give negligent advice that can make the problem worse. Instead, be a listener. Chances are nothing you say can fix your friend's mental health issue. It's far more helpful to be a sympathetic ear than to give potentially negligent advice. Thank you for watching the video. Welcome to Reddit Wisdom. Here you will learn the wisdom of the crowd, the wisdom of Reddit. Please consider subscribing for more Reddit wisdom.